The people who control the institutions got high on the supply of leftism. They were being fed algorithmic junk that would generate more clicks and more traffic for these rage bait blogs. And so they started to go insane, believing insane things. Let me tell you guys something. I've often explained how the algorithmic psychosis took hold in America. For those that aren't familiar, I'm going to explain it. And for those that are familiar, please bear with me as I explain to those who are not familiar. In the late 2000s, Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and whatever else were trying to figure out algorithms. Not so much Twitter. Twitter didn't go algorithmic for a while. They were trying to figure out how to get the most amount of engagement on posts. So they created algorithms. Regular people then would see a post and it would say, I like chocolate chip cookies. And they would interact with it. And then Facebook would be like, people seem to like chocolate chip cookies. Show them more posts about cookies. But then one day someone posts a video of a black man being beaten by police. And all of a sudden, 1 million shares, 300 million views. And the Facebook algorithm, without any disdain for what the video was, said, this is what people want to see. No, I don't think people wanted to see that. I think they were mad about it and wanted people to know because they wanted justice. Well, the algorithm then started feeding more of these videos. But more importantly, humans figured it out. Humans figured out I get way more views when I post these videos. So the Rage Bait blog started posting more and more and more of this. In fact, at one point, there was a website dedicated to nothing but police brutality that was in the top global 500 websites. All they did was post police brutality videos. Then something more magical happened. The discovery of intersectional feminism. Wait a minute. If we combine racism and sexism, we don't just get X views or Y views, and we don't get X plus Y, we get XY views. An exponential increase by combining the keywords. Thus, we saw the rise of intersectionality, which was this idea, which is rooted in, it stems from critical race theory, that a black woman experiences a unique kind of sexism and racism that a black man and a white woman would not experience, creating an all new interpretation of racism. What ends up happening is you have all of these companies producing rage bait to great. Every article is police brutality nonstop. Mike.com started as, my understanding is, a Ron Paul libertarian website.
No way. Did Mike start off as Ron Paul?
That's
wow.
There was an investigation I read about, so correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but it started off like just being like, what was the internet? What was big on the internet back then? Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
Love
I mean,
Revolution.
he was number one on Reddit. I mean, that's where I first heard about Bitcoin, was a Ron Paul event.
But then something happened. They realized that anger was the number one, was the emotion that caused the highest amount of shares. So then instead of being about Ron Paul, it became about police brutality. Now, you got to understand, too, the Ron Paul crowd overlapped with the police brutality crowd because libertarians didn't like seeing people be beaten by cops, and they liked Ron Paul, too. But the police brutality people found that enraging people with intersectionality was worth more, and eventually it leaves the Ron Paul people behind, who are probably, to be completely honest, more rational in their thinking, and they were looking for information, they were finding it, they were getting away from the mainstream. Which brings me to the current state of our generational algorithmic psychosis. Someone who is 10 years old in 2008 goes on Facebook, maybe for the first time. I know they're not supposed to because you're supposed to be 13, but they're 10. And what do they see? Nothing but police brutality videos. Every video in their feed is a cop beating a black man. 5 years goes by. A third of their life is inundated with nonstop posts of police beating black men. Now, does that mean that more and more cops are doing this? No, not at all. It's just that when you have how many million, 300 something million interactions with cops per year, a handful of them are going to get really, really bad. Some may be taken out of context. Now, it's 10 years later. We're talking 2018. And these kids are now 20 years old. Half of their lives, they have seen nothing but the police, brutality videos, and racism and sexism. Now it's 2021. Now they're all in their early to mid 20s, these young people, most of their lives inundated with algorithmic psychosis.
Yeah.
Is it true that police sometimes will beat a person unjustly? It is. Does sometimes mean a lot? It actually doesn't. Is a lot relative? Okay, sure it is. But out of hundreds of millions of interactions with police, a tiny, tiny fraction, I think the Wall Street Journal said 19 unarmed black men were killed by police. That's a problem. Each and every one of those deaths is bad. But when you play those videos on loop for a decade, people's worldview, these kids, they grew up in a world where the only thing they ever saw were these videos played on repeat. sometimes from different angles.
I mean, the internet is like raising kids now. I
is.
feel like I was raised by the internet, and I mean, I had a
But-
great family and all that, but a lot of people, they don't even have a great family, and they're raised by the internet.
But these kids grew up in a world that doesn't exist.
Yep.
So I remember, I notice this from time to time. You go on Reddit, and I'll see the same police brutality video from like 2014, and it pops up once a week because it gets karma. Because if someone says, I want to get internet points, they post it, and they know people are going to upvote it. And they don't know, or they don't care, that it's really old. That 10-year-old kid sees that video every week, and then they forget, and they see it a month later, and then they engage. And these videos are constantly recycled in this way. It's algorithmic psychosis that is warping the minds of people who live in the internet, who are growing up with it. The other thing that is causing the chaos is what I call the scaling problem. And it's basically, if you have 100 police officers and one of them is a dick and a psychopath who beats somebody, that's 1%. Most people are going to be like, arrest that guy. Problem solved. It's just one guy. If you have 100 million police officers, you've now got 1 million cops going around doing all this stuff. That's a very, very serious problem. But it's the same percentage. Now, it's not nearly that high in terms of bad police officers. We do have problems with cops, don't get me wrong, in terms of like enforcing unjust laws or seizing people's guns and things like that in violation of the Constitution and violating people's free speech. I've seen it. The cops who sprayed those girls, the women at Occupy Wall Street for no reason, just walked up Tony Baloney and he sprayed her. That's wrong. But when you look at the actual ratio, these people who grow up in the paranoid, delusional world of rage bait algorithms and their whole lives have been inundated with this, they live in this world that's completely inverted. The 0.001% of cops who are actually doing these things become the 99.99% of cops because they've never seen other interactions. Now they're going into politics. Now they're voting. So if you think everything is going to stop, what people need to understand is it's not about you. It's about the kids from 10 years ago and where they are now. It's about the kids who are 15 years old right now, what they've been raised on, and who they will vote for in the next 3 years, which could be crazy crackpot far left cult member who microwaves their underwear and is using a curling iron to make pancakes, because that's what they see on the internet.
Could be Kanye West.
I believe.
That's not so bad.
I believe. I love Kanye so much. I mean, those Sunday services are amazing. I mean, that's why I wanted to get into politics, actually. I feel like Kanye was one of the biggest motivators because just seeing someone, you know, like in the song Reborn and all that with Kid Cudi, it was just so beautiful. You know, I want all the smoke. I want all the pain. I want all the blame. What an awesome thing engulfed in shame. And that's what made me want it, because I've been like, what got me into Bitcoin was Ron Paul and all that, and that whole world, and meeting some guy had a Bitcoin. It was actually Adam Kokesh. It was actually an Adam Kokesh event, and
What
it was
year
all
was
Ron
it?
Paul people. I forgot it was around when Bitcoin had come out recently, and my older brother brought me to an Adam Kokesh event, and he got arrested at the Jefferson Memorial for dancing and all that. Do you remember that?
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, and then my brother, we flew in and we went to go protest that. And then, so it was like a Footloose like protest. And then some guy had this orange Bitcoin shirt on, or had an orange B and it looked like a dollar sign. I'm like, what's that? And he's like, it's Bitcoin, man. It's going to end Wall Street, bro. And he ran off.
You know what I love about
That started
Bitcoin?
it all.
You know what I love about Bitcoin?
What?
The people who endorsed it early on had no idea what it was at all. And the reason I didn't buy is because me and my friends more so knew what it was. Now, so my story is that back in 2011, Bitcoin was at 70 cents. And I look over to my friend, I'm in LA at Hackerspace, 70 cents per Bitcoin. And I was like, hey, I got $5,000 in savings. Should I just buy all this put it all in Bitcoin? Because I'm not going to touch the money. You know what I mean? It's just my savings sitting in my bank account. And he goes, dude, like, first of all, how do you even buy this stuff? And then second of all, it's probably a scam. Like, somebody makes this and they tell you it's valuable, and sure, it's like, you know, we understood Bitcoin, but he's like, what can you really do? You're going to buy it, and then a month it's going to be a fad, and then you're going to lose everything. And I was like, that's a good point. I won't buy.
Well, I'm familiar with the people calling product scams when they're not.
I remember seeing it and thinking like, okay, so now my currency is going to be, I got to write a string of numbers on letters on paper. If my paper gets lost or burned, it's gone forever. And if I lose access to electricity, I don't have my money. So I didn't get into it. But what was your impetus to get into it?
Well, so actually, yeah. Do you want to tell us what year and how you...
Yeah, I got into it 2011. as well. So I had about my grandmother who was very old, and she gave me $1,000, and she's like, Eric, use this for your scholarship. One day go to school, and
I'm gonna buy fake internet money.
and that's what I did. So that's what I ended up doing. So I bought that. My brother taught me how to get that out. And actually buying Bitcoin was easier back in the day because it was like you could just pay some guy over PayPal, and then and get Bitcoin sent to your wallet address. I mean, you had Bitcoin faucets back in the day, which is where they would give away free Bitcoin.
I got 0.15 Bitcoin from that faucet.
Wow. Yeah,
But
Bitcoin.org, right?
That computer got destroyed though.
Oh my God.
So I don't even know how many Bitcoin were on that computer. The computer I had back at the hackerspace, because I didn't put my savings into it, but I still did get some Bitcoin. It was worthless. I was like, whatever. It's like I had like $1.
Yeah,
that happened
that happened to my friend. He American Airlines lost his bag, and that had about 500 Bitcoin on it.
No.
Yeah, I know.
Where did you store it in the beginning?
Back in the day, and definitely not now, but I just stored it on my laptop.
Okay.
Like you download the bitcoin.org
Yeah,
desktop wallet, and that's
Yep.
what you did. Alpaca socks, if anybody remembers that. And yeah, I mean, I was a weird kid. I mean, some kids had video games, some kid had sports. Mine was Bitcoin. I just spent every day, and I ended up I dropped out of high school because I had some Bitcoin money then. Moved my butt to Palo Alto, Silicon Valley, and just tried to do a business and all that, and that ended up going well. But eventually sold that company, put it all back into Bitcoin. But Bitcoin to me, I mean, when I first got into it, I actually did think it was going to be big, but it was kind of in the way you hope for world peace. Like it's like, well, you hope for it, but you don't know if it'll happen.
There's a funny meme where it's like there's like a guy who's like wearing a nice polo and glasses, and he's like, Bitcoin seems interesting, but I'm not entirely sure that people will build confidence in this decentralized network. But I'll look into it. And the next guy is like fat with like a beard and flies, and he's like, I want to buy drugs on the internet. And it's like, that guy's a millionaire now.
Yeah.
Because he was just like some scumbag who's like, I don't care.
Did you pre-install wallets or on the Freedom Phone wallets?
Yeah, there's a crypto wallet on the phone.
What's it called?
It's called MetalPay actually. So that's
Do you have the phone?
Yes,
do you
I
want
do.
Do you want to pull it out?
I have it pull it out.
Do you want to pull out your phone? So we won't use the pronouns.
I know.
Do you want to pull it out?
But that's another thing.
Rip
it's
it
just,
out.
Like everyone told me when I got into Bitcoin, and they were all like, "Yeah, bro, that's a scam, bro. Get out of here. Someone took your money on the internet. Some guy named Bitcoin took your money on the, and that's how it happened." And that's
I got into an argument with some ANCAP guy, and I
That's
was
always
like,
great.
It was funny because I was like talking about this is like probably 2012 or 13. I was like, so Bitcoin was still relatively cheap back then, and I was talking about my concerns, and he didn't know anything at all, and he's probably like worth hundreds of millions of dollars right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I wish I was dumb. You know what I mean? And just like, oh, cool, Bitcoin, ANCAP, woo, anarchy. And then I just bought a bunch, not thinking about it. But I was like, there are some very interesting problems with this. We saw some of the hard forks, or not the hard forks, the hard forks, the
Bitcoin Cash and
there was the accidental ones.
Oh, really?
Do you remember when I think it was in 2013, Bitcoin forked on accident?
Oh yeah.
And then they had to like do an emergency, like, no, that's not the real thing anymore, and like switch to this node. And so I was like, But the mistake I made back then was, it was an investing in. The one thing the ANCAPs understood was that it was a decentralized, non-copyable asset that was difficult to locate, and that's all that really mattered. And so
I was ANCAP back when I was 12.
But there's that. There's two things. There's that. And that in and of itself was like, we don't care what the value of the Bitcoin is. I can have this Bitcoin and trade it, and it's easy. The other thing was, back in the day, it was actually a very interesting way to transfer funds very quickly internationally, not because you cared about the value of Bitcoin. Put it this way. Let's say I need to give you $1. And you're 1,000 miles away. So I can't hand you the $1. So what I do is I go on, I send you $1 worth of Bitcoin, and then you immediately sell it for $1. So I just transfer the $1 instantly. Neither of us are holding Bitcoin. I go to the site and I say, buy Bitcoin, send, and then you go, accept Bitcoin, sell. The $1 transferred like that. That was that was very, very early in Bitcoin's history, when I was like, now I started to understand why this is such a powerful tool, because it basically cuts out a lot of the financial infrastructure for transferring funds very quickly. It didn't matter what the price of a Bitcoin was, because if someone could transfer value instantly, then there would be more demand for buying than selling. And so that's when I was like, okay, I'll get some Bitcoin. I started taking it more seriously, and since then I have.
I mean, the ANCAPs back in the day. I mean, I was really into that, and I still a part of me. But I mean, that whole world was just bunch of. I mean, that's how all great things get started, is people that are a little different and all that. And
but how did you, so you bought in 2011, you bought all these Bitcoin, and then when did you become a millionaire?
So I became a millionaire at 18, so I was like 12 back then. So again, that was...
Wait, you bought Bitcoin when you were 12?
Yeah, I bought Bitcoin when I was 12. And again, it was easier back in the day because, although I ended up having to do it later, but all the KYC stuff, you could just PayPal some guy on local Bitcoins. And so that's what I did. And... I mean, I was 12 years old, and I just spent every day, I was like mowing lawns just to try to get more money to put into it.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's it. Because a lot of people say, like, when I tell that story about having the $5,000 in savings and wanting to buy Bitcoin, everyone responds with, "You would have sold it $20." And I'm like, "You're correct." If I put $5,000 into Bitcoin and hit $20, I'd be like, and I'd sell right away. I'd be like, just get it, because I wasn't smart enough, I guess. I didn't have the vision. I didn't see it.
I think to me, it was just my whole identity was wrapped up in Bitcoin, because it's like, what are you going to do as a 14-year-old, with this money when it went up? And then again, it was just like, I was just obsessed with Bitcoin, and it was my identity, and it just inspired me to do so many other things. But yeah, I became a millionaire at 18. I'm 22 now. I'm an old man. Did that, and then a bunch of articles came out, youngest Bitcoin millionaire, which was nice, but ultimately was cool, I guess.
But you didn't buy Doge.
I did buy some Doge early on. I did cash out Doge early though. That was my mistake. I now have some coin in Doge, and all that. But yeah, I mean, I was all in Bitcoin. I mean, I remember I made like $300 on Dogecoin like back in the day, and I was like, well, this is as far as it's gonna go, because Dogecoin is one of those coins that has lasted for such a long time. I mean, they did the whole NASCAR thing early on, and then after that faded, I was like, well, maybe Dogecoin.
I love how in the early days of Bitcoin there was like thousands of altcoins. We'll call them altcoins. And they were just like clones of Bitcoin with different names.
Yeah.
And then people would be like, this is the one that's going to beat Bitcoin. And I'm like, it's nothing. It's all the same thing. It's like you just cloned the code and then made it and then sold it. And people made money doing it. It was crazy, because even if it was almost worthless, you could make like 1 million coins, go on some trading website, and people would be like, I'll give you Bitcoin for it.
It was so scammy in the early
I know, and it still is.
Still is,
can
yeah.
be,
So, I mean, Litecoin was one of those things. I mean, seeing Litecoin, like Ethereum's kind of the new Litecoin, but I remember Litecoin was just, whenever Bitcoin went up, like Litecoin was always that number 2.
And they would say Bitcoin is gold, Litecoin is silver.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was literally the logos, and it was that was just such a crazy, beautiful time, and I think
Wild West of the internet, man.
It was the wild West on the internet, and then again, I mean, I remember there was this thing called World of Text, and it was like when Chrome first came out, and you had like a WebGL, I think it was called, and it was and basically it was this whole just giant text page where you could just write anything and be yourself and all that, and that was what was beautiful, and and again, I just feel like not to tie it into today, but I mean, it's just they're taking away the ability to be yourself, and people use the terms like free speech and all that, and I mean that's the perfect term for it, but what does that really mean? It's the right to have your own voice, the right to be yourself.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.